Long before the highways, before neon lights and diners that never slept, there was another America, wild, untamed, and hungry. The land stretched endlessly, whispering promises and threats in the same breath. Out there, survival wasn't a dream. It was a recipe, written not in books, but in smoke, fire, and the growl of an empty stomach. The frontier wasn't built with stone or iron. It was built with hunger. Every meal cooked beneath that open sky carried a story. Beans simmered slow over embers, bread baked on the edge of a pan, coffee brewed thick and black enough to bite back the cold. There were no chefs, no kitchens, only cast iron, bare hands, and the will to make something out of nothing. But for those who lived it, the cowboys, the homesteaders, the wanderers chasing gold and God alike, these simple meals were more than food. They were a reminder that comfort could still exist, even when the world around them refused to be kind. A bowl of stew meant another night survived. A loaf of cornbread meant hope still had a taste. Tonight, we go back there, to the smoke, the silence, and the simmer of a forgotten America. These are the meals that fed the frontier, the flavors that built a nation, and the stories that refuse to fade, even when the fire burns low. In the heart of the American wilderness, hunger was not an occasional guest. It lived among them. Men labored from dawn till dusk, hands cracked from the cold, their backs bent beneath the weight of timber and toil. Women tended fires that never truly went out, for the warmth was more than comfort. It was protection. And when the mountains whispered down their chill, there was one smell that promised life. The scent of beans simmering slow with smoked pork. It wasn't just food. It was a story told in steam and silence. Each pot carried the same ritual. Soak the beans overnight, gather the wood before dusk, carve a piece of meat salted and smoked weeks ago, and wait. The waiting was part of it. The patience, the slow surrender of hunger to flavor. As the fire cracked beneath the iron pot, the stew thickened and spoke in quiet bubbles, each one a whisper from the past. They said that in the mining camps of Nevada, men would trade bullets for a bowl of that stew. A legend told of a prospector who vanished in the mountains, only to be found weeks later, alive, half mad, half starved, clutching an old tin cup still lined with dried beans. Whether it was luck, faith, or the stubborn spirit of the frontier, no one knew. But from that day on, every traveler swore to carry beans and meat wherever he went. The recipe was never written down. It lived in memory, passed from hands that cooked in cast iron to hands that fought through blizzards and droughts. A pinch of salt, a scrap of smoked bacon, sometimes wild herbs gathered from the riverbank, thyme, sage, or whatever grew brave enough to face the cold. And always, the same secret: time. Let it cook slow, let the smoke seep deep, and let the hunger build until every bite felt like a reward for survival. By evening, the air around the camp thickened with scent. The fire crackled, stars blinked awake above the endless dark, and laughter replaced the day's silence. One man told stories, another tuned a battered fid. By evening, the air around the camp thickened with scent. The fire crackled, stars blinked awake above the endless dark, and laughter replaced the day's silence. One man told stories, another tuned a battered fiddle, while someone stirred the stew, not because it needed it, but because it felt like tending to something sacred. They ate from tin bowls, spoons clinking softly against metal, steam fogging their faces as they smiled through the exhaustion. Long ago, across the dusty lands of the American frontier, where the wind carried the scent of iron, smoke, and survival, there was one thing every settler trusted more than his rifle: a skillet of hot, golden cornbread. It wasn't just food. It was a promise. The bread of the frontier, as they called it. The bread of a nation still finding its shape. Its scent filled the cabins, the wagon camps, and the mining towns. That warm, smoky aroma of cornmeal, pork fat, and wood fire that clung to clothes, hair, and hearts alike. When a woman held a handful of cornmeal, a bit of lard, and a cast iron pan, she could create what felt like a miracle. The process was simple, but every step carried weight. Cornmeal sifted through fingers, water trickling from a wooden bucket, lard softened over the fire. And then, the mixing, rhythmic, meditative, almost sacred. The batter, pale gold and granular, promised warmth, sustenance, and the faint sweetness of home. Baked over the open flame or in a crude iron skillet, the cornbread puffed and hissed, its crust forming a protective shell over the tender, buttery inside. Children pressed their noses against cabin windows, waiting for the crackling sound that signaled the bread was done. Cowboys and travelers alike cherished it, torn apart with hands blackened by work, dipped in coffee, or eaten straight from the pan. It was more than nourishment. It was a symbol. Cornbread told stories of resilience and ingenuity, of women and men making the most of what little they had. Recipes were whispered and guarded, passed from one settler to another, with little variation save for what ingredients were at hand: a pinch of sugar, a handful of wild berries, or a spoon of molasses. And when the frontier winds blew harsh and cold, the smell of cornbread in the cabin was more than comforting. It was a signal that life went on, that the hearth still glowed, and that the long, wild day had ended with something golden, warm, and entirely theirs. Deep in the forests and valleys of the 1800s American frontier, venison was more than meat. It was survival, skill, and sometimes luck. Hunters would track deer for hours, reading the wind, the rustle of leaves, the subtle prints on soft earth. Every step mattered, and when the prize finally fell, it wasn't just dinner. It was the result of patience, knowledge, and respect for the wild. Back at the cabin or the campfire, the venison steak was treated with care. It was rubbed with a mixture of salt, herbs, and occasionally wild garlic or juniper berries. The iron skillet or open flame would hiss as the meat hit the hot surface, fat sizzling, smoke rising in thin spirals, carrying with it the scent of pine and the forest itself. Cowboys and hunters knew that the first bite was a reward, tender, smoky, with the faint bitterness of the forest and the warmth of fire. Families and travelers alike gathered around the fire to eat. The steak, sometimes accompanied by roasted roots or cornbread, became a moment of connection. Stories were shared, plans made, songs hummed under the stars. In towns near the frontier edge, a grilled venison steak could command respect and gratitude, a dish worthy of celebration after weeks of toil. It was simple, rustic, but magical in its own right. Each bite told a story of the land, the hunt, and the people who refused to yield to hardship. Time, patience, and a keen eye were as essential as the fire itself. And when the last piece was gone, the smoke lingered in the air, a reminder that life in the wild was hard, but filled with moments of warmth, flavor, and survival. In the kitchens of frontier homesteads, corn was king. It fed families, travelers, and the occasional weary cowboy alike. Corn pudding, a simple mix of cornmeal, milk, eggs, and a hint of sugar, transformed humble ingredients into something magical. Its golden hue shimmered in the morning light, promising warmth, sustenance, and a fleeting touch of sweetness in a world built on labor and grit. Women stirred the thick mixture with wooden spoons, feeling the grainy cornmeal soften and swell, the eggs binding it all together. Some added wild berries, or drizzled in a little maple syrup if they had been lucky enough to trade with a passing wagon. The oven, often a brick hearth or iron pot buried in coals, coaxed the pudding into a delicate crust while keeping the inside moist, tender, and fragrant. The smell rose into the cabin, wrapping everyone in a sense of home. Frontier children waited eagerly, noses twitching, fingers tapping on rough wooden tables. To them, the pudding was more than food. It was comfort, a rare sweetness in the harsh rhythms of frontier life. Cowboys on long drives carried small portions, wrapped in cloth, savoring every bite under the wide-open sky. It was a reminder that even amidst toil and survival, there could be joy. Corn pudding was ritual, memory, and a quiet rebellion against hardship. The golden squares, steaming and aromatic, connected generations, told stories of harvest, trade, and ingenuity. And as settlers shared each spoonful, laughter and conversation rose with the steam, echoing through cabins and tents alike. Every bite was a small celebration of life, resilience, and the simple, sweet miracles of frontier cooking. Before the sun even touched the horizon, the fire was already crackling. The first sound of the day wasn't birds or boots. It was the grind of coffee beans between calloused hands. Out on the frontier, coffee wasn't a luxury. It was a necessity, as vital as the rifle or the rope. The beans were scarce, traded from distant towns or brought across rough trails in small sacks. Sometimes they were roasted in pans blackened by 100 campfires, sometimes just scorched in a tin cup until they smoked. Cowboys crushed them with rifle butts or the heels of their knives, poured boiling water straight over, and waited as the ground swirled like dust in a desert wind. The smell alone was enough to wake the camp. Bitter, sharp, comforting, it cut through the cold and carried a promise. You've made it through the night. They didn't care for fancy brews or fine wines. What mattered was heat, strength, and the taste of something alive. Men sat in silence, watching the sunrise bleed across the horizon, mugs cradled between rough palms. Some added sugar if they were lucky, others drank it black as midnight. A few even tossed in whiskey, calling it cowboy courage. And in that moment, when the steam met the dawn, it wasn't just coffee, it was communion. Every pot told a story of sleepless rides, of lost friends, of long trails yet to come. Frontier coffee was bitter, yes, but so was survival. And with every swallow, those men reminded themselves that no matter how cold the morning, the fire still burned. The fire burns low, and the night settles over the plains. The taste of smoke, salt, and stories lingers, a reminder of a world that once was. If you've journeyed this far, partner, tip your hat, hit that like, and subscribe for the next ride through the forgotten flavors of the frontier. Because out here, every flame tells a story, and we've got plenty more to share.